Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Donut Shop podcast. Today, I have the guest, Christopher Bingham. He's a federal police officer with 23 years of experience, 17 of those alongside Canine Partners, where he's also served as a canine commander, supporting national security efforts. So he's here today to tell the extraordinary journey of his loyal partner, Canine Tambo, a dog that's responded to hundreds of calls, searched thousands of vehicles, and remained steadfast even in retirement. But when Tambo was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer, the bond between the canine handler, Christopher, and the canine became a lifelong, and not just emotional, but medically too. So we're going to talk about that unique bond between canine handlers and their dogs, the challenges after services, and then what it takes, to fight for our heroes, either the furry ones or, the two-legged ones. So from there, let's dig in and welcome Chris. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Justin. It's an honor to be on here.
Yeah, man. So let's kind of just get into a little bit about, I like to sort of establish the guest and kind of tell where you're at. We've been sitting here talking, but there's some stuff, like, as with most active police officers, we usually agency policy dictates that we sort of can't explain where we work. We can tell some stories and sort of leave the names out. So that's the biggest thing. So it happens for me. And it's the same case for you, because you're still active, but you still have this story that you need to get out and to talk about. So kind of, who are you? What have you been doing the last, 20 something odd years?
So been in law enforcement now for 23 years. Lucky enough to get on our canine unit early on. So 17 of those years I've spent on the canine unit. I was lucky enough to retire 3 dogs. Tambo, who we'll be talking about, is my most recent one that I've retired. Over those 23 years, I got to spend 6 years in Hawaii for an assignment. And then most recently, I've been on our command staff, serving in some key leadership roles for us, managing a lot of officers.
Cool. That's cool stuff. So you say, like, I know sometimes agencies obviously differ. When canine dogs retire, their lifespans obviously aren't as long as us. They're not as long as our careers. But did your agency give you the dog, or do they go to sort of like a farm, like a retirement home? Like, what do they do prior to Tambo?
Yeah. So what we do is we look at the dog. We kind of did a baseline of the workability of the dog, because one of the big things for us is we want to make sure that the dog has some quality of life in retirement. So we kind of talked to some other local agencies, some federal agencies, and saw what they were doing and kind of based it off of our needs. And then so what we came up with is a retirement age of between 8 and 10. And that was based on, at that time, medical needs, workability, a lot of different factors. But the end goal was to always be able to retire that dog to the handler at the end of that dog's term of working. Now, I will say the caveat to that is you get a handler that comes on and they're only there for 2 years, and then they want to go take another assignment. Obviously, you put a lot of money and training into that dog. You can't just give that dog to the handler. But if they put the time in with the dog and work the good length of that career, the goal was to have that dog go with the handler in retirement.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks to the bond between a canine and the handler, and so I think the layman's, or the general audience, most police officers pretty much understand that, but can you speak to that, kind of like what goes into the bond between a police officer and their canine partner?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is we spend more time with these dogs than our spouses, our kids, any of our family members, friends. I mean, those think about those countless rides in the car. I mean, that's all part of the bonding process. But from the minute you get that dog, that bonding process starts, that trust starts. And they obviously can't speak, so you're reading their body language and their actions, and then they're doing the same with you, and then understanding your voice commands, and understanding when it's time to work, or it's time to be at home. So that constant bond is ongoing. That's what I used to tell the handlers when they come on. So and being consistent with how you do things, and then also earning that trust with the dog, and that will go a long way, because and you got to have a clear mind, especially when you're working that dog, because you become so in tune with that dog when you start, especially in detection work, or whether it's patrol work, and you start doing something different, the dog is going to feed off your energy.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, I know that just with common house dogs, your regular everyday dog, there's just things that if you are conscious of it and you pay attention to it, and especially if it's your job, you can see tells within them. They can see tells within you, which is one of the reasons why dogs are used as therapy animals these days, and they can detect things as crazy as like someone's going to have a seizure coming upon them, and the dogs can tell before the seizure hits, sometimes probably before the person knows that the seizure is coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. These dogs are, they're so instinctive, and they become so in tune with you, and the littlest thing you may have off. I mean, we see it countless times when handlers are running, certification problems, or, recently I was a judge out at the World and Police Fire Games for the canine events, and you see some of the handlers when they get into a competition, they start searching differently, and then the dog starts feeding off that energy. Then the dog starts, working differently. And I had some handlers come up to me afterwards and say, my dog doesn't normally act like that. And I said, well, you were kind of a little anxious searching. Is that normally how you search? And they're well, like, no. So I'm like, well, that's the dog feeding off you, because at the end of the day, especially with detection work, it's a game for the dog. They're doing that search to get that reward and that praise from mom or dad. So if they can cheat or take a shortcut, they're certainly going to do it. So if they're like, okay, mom or dad is acting different, I'm just going to sit now, because then I may get my reward. So you really have to go in that and have a clear head and be consistent. It's just like, training, if you do, boxing or Muay Thai consistently with striking, being consistent with how you're doing that and repetition. It's the same thing with training dogs. A lot of it isn't rocket science. So.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. It's an interesting thing, because they didn't sign up to be a police officer. They don't know what the heck they're truly doing, because they're not watching YouTube videos or watching movies, Cops and Robbers. They didn't play Cops and Robbers as a puppy. They're not signing up for that. They're doing a role. They get a reward for it, and that's it. So it's like, and this is how, like you said, this is how you train. Like our canine training days are on Wednesdays, when they're in a static environment that's not going to cause a problem. They're training a certain way, and they need to handle it the exact same way. And a competition can definitely change the psyche of a handler. And the dogs don't know they're in a competition. They're not looking forward to getting a medal or something like that. They just want a freaking tug or a treat or a ball. Like, that's all they want. And so,
and it can really screw the dog up too in the long run, because, you see them, they'll sweep I was running the vehicle section. So they'll sweep a vehicle. Dog was willing to leave it, but then you see them go back to it and search it 3 more times. And that's not normally what they would do. So in the dog's mind, okay, dad or mom, this keeps bringing me back to this vehicle. There must be something here. And what I always tell our handlers, if the dog is willing to leave it, then go. You need to be able to trust that dog and have that trust in the dog, and the dog needs to have that trust in you. And when you start messing up that psyche, that's when you start running into some problems.
That's pretty cool. What other a little sidebar that I didn't know we were going to talk about, but what other competitions or what other events are in that type of a competition?
So you have the vehicles, you have luggage, you have an industrial kind of like an open area. We didn't do any patrol aspects. We just ran detection for explosives and narcotics. And Project Canine Hero was the one sponsoring the events this year, so I was able to go down with the team and along with Jason Johnson, Ricky Farley from Alabama Canine, and a few other people as some of the judges.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, a friend of mine that was in the academy with me. He runs a canine training company down here as well. So he, some people have told me, hey, you should get Eric on your podcast and just talk about canine training and stuff. So I was like, well, I actually have a guy coming on this week, and then so yeah, maybe I'll sprinkle in another canine conversation down the line. We in the early stages of this podcast, we had a guy come on that's was a City of Miami canine lieutenant, and then he also had his personal business of training people's personal dogs and protection dogs and stuff like that. And so he ended up leaving the job because he was just doing so well with that business, and he had to make that decision to turn it over. And I know there's a lot of guys that see the opportunity because they've got to run the trainings locally or in-house, or like for us where we are in Broward County, we have a canine training group, multi-agency canine training group. They all get together. They're all basically one team. So it's like sometimes, because if our officers aren't available and we need somebody for something, you need to be able to call another city and then have them have worked in your city, know some of the lay of the land, know maybe a few of the officers, because sometimes our street crimes guys or our SWAT team guys may go out and do some canine training work. So they may, because, if it's the patrol aspect, a lot of times you've got to send like a SWAT team or a tactical type officer with those canine officers for coverage. And then in case you do encounter the bad guy and they're doing their work, or they're just holding the bad guy in place without a contact, you got to have your contact officer to deal with the cuffing and all that. And these guys can be cover, canine cover and sometimes firearms cover. So
absolutely.
it's important. It's important for, patrol officers or uniform officers that are going to work with canine. They need to get out there and train with them and practice. That way there's trust across the board, trust in the officer, because sometimes we see these dogs and we're like, that thing's foaming at the mouth, I don't want to get near that thing. And you got to understand, you got to trust, or you got to be conscious of the fact that you may get bit, but also remember not to lose your mind if you get a nip, because
absolutely.
So yeah, can you speak to some of that psyche of like a dog, like a canine patrol dog, and kind of like what they how they feel about biting something or the actual bite? Like I know there's a bit of a story to that, instead of me just talking the whole time.
Yeah, I mean it's something that not all dogs are cut out for. I mean, when we started our unit, we had all dual purpose dogs, and then we eventually, with the amount of detection sweeps we had to do, we kind of pared that down. But not all dogs are cut out for that, and there's a lot of training and psyche that goes into that, and making sure you got good decoys that are able to take those bites, and making sure that you're kind of training those dogs the right way with getting them prepared for all that. So
yeah, I mean, you guys probably train way more than you actually even work the dogs sometimes, especially at the beginning. Cool, man. All right, let me I'm going to drop in a little commercial, and then we'll be right back, and let's get talking about Tambo and find out what's up, guys. Want to talk to you about Tasty Gains. They're a sponsor of Counterculture Inc. We love them, been using them, and I enjoy it. It's a little gummy. It's got like 1 gram of creatine in there, so you take 3 a day, knock it out. It's making a difference, and it gives me a little bit of sweetness too during the day. I can keep them right in my backpack in my car at work, and they don't melt. You can see this is the mango pineapple. It's my favorite flavor, but check it out. Use code Counterculture to get 20% off on Tasty Gains. So check out Tasty Gains. They're great. So get your swole on. Yeah. All right. I got to take some in a little bit, but yeah. So you came on and you obviously have this story, with your most recent canine that has retired and does live with you, Tambo. So what's a little bit of Tambo's story, through work, and then we'll work into what Tambo has going on now.
Sure. So when I started with the unit, spent about 11 years as a handler on that. First dog was a dual purpose Malinois, and then second dog was a Shepherd Malinois mix, and worked and retired them. I left the unit for a while, did a little some other things, and took some other assignments. Went with the Hawaii thing, and then when it came back, I got an opportunity to come back as our canine commander. So one of the things my boss had said to me is, if you come back as the commander, you're not getting a dog. So me being stubborn, I kept pestering her. So ironically, we had one dog in the kennel that had been cycled through two other handlers that for one reason or another didn't work out. And so she said to me, okay, if you want to take a dog, you got to take Tambo in the kennel. So at first I was like, that dog's he's kind of aloof. I said I don't know about that. They said he wasn't good with kids, and he was quirky, and wasn't the best worker. And so long story short, I wanted a dog, and I wanted to continue to work. And I'm the type is, if I want to being a part of the team, you kind of want to lead from the front, and then have a dog and be a part of everything. So I took Tambo, and I feel like it was meant to be. I mean, he was very quirky. It's the best way to kind of describe him, but it took a while and he was very aloof. So I remember, we took a TDY out to another state, and I was in a hotel room with him. And I think this was kind of part of our bonding process. And, there's different thought processes when you have your dog at home, but mine is I like to let the dog be a dog at home. So I don't have him, in work mode all the time or in the very kennel. So he was in the room, I was in the bed, and I was, working on my laptop, and he kind of all of a sudden jumps up on the bed and looks at me. I look at him, and he starts fluffing the bed up, and then he jumped off quickly. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to let him bond with me at his own time. Well, woke up in the middle of the night, and he was sound asleep laying next to me in the bed. So I knew at that moment I was starting to earn his trust. And because people kind of ask you when do you kind of have that bonding moment, and that was one of the ones with Tambo. So from there, just doing the work after that, the detection work, we really started to sync and do well together, and being able to read him and him being able to read me, and we really kind of gelled. But it was a challenge being in charge, and then trying to be able to get time and go out and work them. So, there was times, feeling guilty, having to take care of administrative stuff, and not being able to get out and work them as much. But I think we had a good balance with everything. But, Tambo was
that's good. I know it gets
great.
Tough sometimes, because sometimes
Yeah.
canine officers, they do tend to promote, and sometimes if they are good at what they do, they promote and carry their dog up with them. And like my agency's kind of done that, where they've sort of like, all right, now I guess we're going to have a sergeant in charge of canine, or I guess we're going to have a lieutenant in charge of canine. But FYI, you also have to be in charge of a patrol platoon as well. So you've got your canine team, but then you're also in charge of patrol, where other lieutenants are also in charge of a platoon, but they don't have that other auxiliary job. And you, like you said, you've got administrative stuff, you've got meetings you got to go to, which most canine officers aren't going to, like command staff type meetings or whatever. So, and it's not somewhere to bring your dog. You're not going to sniff everybody in the meeting. Like, hey guys, just gonna keep running them through practice. So we haven't done any sniffs today, so I'm going to bring them through the office with you guys. But that I can see that does become tough once you start to take on some of the other responsibilities, but that you were able to kind of keep it going.
Yeah, and I could vividly remember sitting in the office doing the administrative stuff, and then he's staring at me, and I'm like, man, I got to get out and go train with him, or I got to get out and help the guys. And And so, it's just really finding, a good balance, especially when you do have that administrative side of things, because, it's important to stay consistent with the dog and get them out there, and they're itching to go. I mean, that's why they came to work with you, just to work, not just sit there with you. So.
Yeah, and it's just like us, it's a diminishing skill. So it's, if you're not
Yep.
consistently training, they are really good at what they're doing, but to fine tune them and hone them into exactly what they're supposed to be doing, they can let it go sometimes and become lazy.
Yes.
Just like
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there any kind of like call, through the hundreds of calls that you've probably went through with Tambo that kind of like sticks out, that's like, either emotionally or operationally, like that was like a cool story or a bad story?
No, I mean, more just being able to do a lot of the different events. We did the, inauguration in 2017, and then being able to support, we support a lot of the local agencies, and we got to do the Pro Bowl in Hawaii. So just being able to do a lot of those events, and, training at the different locations and stuff, that, they all kind of stand out as just kind of memorable moments with Tambo, and having that bond with him and being out in that moment and training or working.
Yeah, especially when they're big time or high profile type stuff. Those
Yeah.
become interesting because you're behind the scenes and you get to see a little bit of the action that you wouldn't see on TV or you wouldn't see on the news or whatever. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So like what happened to Tambo, like through his career?
So he worked 7 years. We worked 7 years together, and it was 2022. He suffered a ligament tear in his right leg on the job doing a detection sweep. He was jumping into the back of a tractor trailer. So that significantly impacted his mobility. So when we went to the orthopedic, it was one of those things where we could say, okay, he could probably get by without the surgery. But we don't know about his workability after that. And then at the time he was almost 9 years old. So doing the surgery, and he said the dog can still have a great life, in retirement. And his mobility may not be the best for working, but didn't want to put him through a surgery if we didn't have to. So the best thing we decided to do was retire him. So we did that, and he was doing fine. And then
so you retire him without the surgery?
Yeah, retired him without the surgery.
I can show them if you ask again.
Sorry, Siri decided to help me out with that answer.
Yeah. So we retired him without the surgery. Got a fitted brace for him. That if we went anywhere, he could wear that. That helped with his mobility and everything. And then his luck, shortly after retiring, he decided he wanted to chase a rabbit in the yard, and tore both of his ACLs. So which I didn't understand at the time with dogs. When one ACL tears, the other one is prone to tear with it. So we got him in there, and that's kind of when to the orthopedic, and they're like, look, we need to do the TPLO surgery. And so that's kind of when Project Canine Hero stepped in with everything. So
what do they do?
So Project Canine Hero is a national nonprofit that provides medical care for military working dogs and police dogs for life. So Jason Johnson, the founder, started the program, and I had met Jason a few years back at one of the HITS conferences in DC, and we started talking. So I had reached out to Jason after Tambo's injury and explained to him, what happened. And Jason was able to get, Tambo in the program. And then, the rest was kind of history from there. Jason said, we got Tambo's back with whatever he needed. They funded the complete surgery. Tambo's mobility after the ACL tear was pretty rough. He wasn't able to get around. And that one surgery alone for for one of the legs was going to cost about $7,000. So they
Yeah.
jumped right in, paid for the surgery, paid for all the rehab, got him back to his mobility and feeling good.
Wow. Yeah. Phew. Yeah. I mean, and it's a big thing because I mean, we all know, just like I can always speak to, pets, my dogs, and having to, deal with surgeries and deal with these, knee surgeries, a lot of dogs like that, especially working dogs, Malinois and Shepherds, they end up having sometimes bad hips. And if the agency, not bashing any agencies that don't have retirement plans for these dogs, I mean, it's a funding thing, and in real life, in the halls of the police departments, they see these dogs as tools. They're not necessarily a human life, and so they have a hard enough time taking care of us, let alone a tool, and they almost see them as a value of the gun or a police car. And so it's like, oh, this car has got too many problems and it's in the shop too much. It needs to get deadlined. It needs to get moved on. And so, you've got the bond now with an officer or even multiple officers sometimes that may have worked with that dog, and there's opportunity to retire that dog. But police agencies, some smaller ones maybe, but larger ones probably can't. They just can't run the funding to care for a dog and all their medical, stuff. We have the same problem with humans where we don't know how many surgeries to do for a human before it's like, where's the quality of life? And so we question the same thing for dogs. So it's, but it's cool that there's nonprofits and organizations that can help and fund those sort of things. So I'll look them up, and I'll throw down in the description a link. So if anybody's watching this and they feel inspired, they can drop some donation in there, because everybody's always looking for a good, reputable charity to put their money than some of these larger, like, no-name charities or big name charities that you don't know where your money's going to, but now you can kind of see where your money's going to.
And I'll give you another example of what Project Canine here did for one of our other dogs. We had a dog that got leukemia. He was only 3 years old and had to retire. And I called Jason up, and Jason bumped him up on the list due to his condition, got him right in the program, got him on chemo, spent about $18,000 over the course of the year with treatments and medical costs, and the dog ended up being able to spend another year and a half with the family in retirement. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's to no fault of any of the agencies. There's just no program set up for when these dogs retire to have any funding for them. But the biggest thing that Jason gave this young handler with his dog and family was time, and I always tell people that's something you can't put a price on. And even though the dog was young and he hadn't had him that long, you still develop that bond and that connection to that dog. And he prolonged his life for a year and a half, and gave him that closure and time with the family, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah, because just like you said, you spend more time as the handler with this dog than you do with your spouse. And we've got, and I'll say men, but we've also got female handlers in my agency. So their husbands are sending them to work with that canine. So it's like that. Yeah. You trust that dog or that partner, just like you would trust if we ran a human partner in the car. They're part of the family, because you're like, that dog has my spouse's back, has my husband, has my wife's back with what they're out there doing with. And so aside from just a house pet or a family dog, like, this dog is my husband's cover on some of these things, because even if they're not a patrol dog that's completely trained in bites, they're still a dog. They've got instincts, and they know that's daddy. I'm going to help him. I'm going to protect him if there's something dangerous that happens. So they're an amazing beast for sure. So let me, I'm going to drop in another quick little commercial break. Try to do them on the 15s, and then we'll talk about some continued stuff going on with Tambo. Yo, what's up, everybody? I want to let you know I have a new website format. Same website, donutshoppodcast.com, but this time I'm running it through Shopify. Make it much easier to purchase items because aside from the hats that I have up there, Donut Shop Podcast, PVC hats, the blue line snapback, laser mesh, nice and clean on the inside, comfy hats. I have some other swag, t-shirts, can koozies, just some other stuff that I put up there. I'm running the website through Shopify, and so it'll make it real easy for you guys to go on and purchase some stuff and support the show. So thanks for tuning in and following the show, and don't forget donutshoppodcast.com. Thanks. Yeah, all right, we're back. So at what point, like in that stage, so now you've got so we talked about somebody else's dog, we were talking about somebody else's dog that had leukemia, and then Tambo got, Jason was able to step in and help out with the ACL surgeries, where they were hind legs, most likely, usually the case.
Hind legs, and it's a pretty extensive recovery and rehab, and we had the doing everything from the water therapy, rehab sessions, and we got him completely back to full health. And I remember seeing him in the yard running again, and calling Jason and said, I said, you brought my boy back to life. I said, because I was talking to someone recently, and I kind of related these dogs to like professional athletes. Is like before you work them with the amount of vehicles we search, like they need to warm up. It's just like an athlete a football player getting ready to go and warm up, and over the course of time with athletes, it takes a lot of wear and tear on the body. So like with football players, after they retire, a lot of these health problems start, and I could see after Tambo retired, and with a lot of the other working dogs, those health issues start to creep in. And the one thing with the working dogs is their minds are always still sharp and ready to work. It's just the body that doesn't always keep up with it. And I could see that, defeat in his eyes, where he wanted to go out and run, and he couldn't do that with these injuries. And that's, telling Jason, man, you kind of brought him back to life. You saved his life, and things were going great. He was back to his mobility. We were doing, I like to give back, and we were doing, and Jason and I became good friends, and I was doing a lot of events with Jason, with Tambo, and things were going great up until probably about July. So
yeah, you guys were doing like ambassador type stuff, and those were like
Yep. So we did I got to do the Phillies salute to service game this year in May. So I got to take Tambo down on the field and get honored on the game. And ironically, it was on his 11th birthday. So that was that was pretty amazing. My son got to be there.
Did they sing happy birthday?
They wished
did you get the whole
happy
stadium?
Birthday, so.
That would have been amazing to have the whole stadium sing happy birthday.
Yeah. And then, I've been down to the Capitol with Jason numerous times. One of the things Jason is working on is passing a bill through legislation and the House to get funding for these working dogs in retirement. So I would go down with Jason to DC a lot and help him lobby. And, we did the Clemson Tigers game. We did, Seattle Mariners. I was supposed to be down with the Marlins in August, but I had to cancel due to, Tampa's current condition. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we might as well, let's get in. I mean, it's amazing that, to see that, come around, and then to see other agencies and stuff like that. And then you get to bounce around and talk about this, or at least show off Tambo to, other jurisdictions, other areas. But so what's going on with him now, or what's he going through?
So it was a typical day in July, and one thing with Tambo and a lot of the working dogs is they love routine. So I get up for work about 4 a.m. and my normal routine when Tambo was working, I go down, I feed him, let him out, spend some time with them. So even in retirement, he expected that same routine. The only thing that he didn't get was to come to work with me, which sucked for him. But so went down that morning, fed him, let him out. He was his vibrant self. So when I came back from work later that day, he normally greets me at the door. Didn't see him. He was in the dining room on the floor, very awake, but very lethargic. I saw that he had thrown up. So I knew something was off, got him up. His stability wasn't good. So I knew immediately I had to take him over to the emergency vet. So we got him over there. They took him right back, and they came out and told me that they did an ultrasound and said that he had a mass on his spleen that burst.
So probably what the vomit came from and all that stuff.
Yeah. And then when that happens, the abdomen quickly starts filling up with blood and the blood loss and everything. So I called Jason up immediately and said, "Hey, bro, this is what's going on." And he just said to me, he said, "Chris," he said, "we got your and Tambo's back." He said, "Whatever you need," he said, "just give me a call and whatever they need to do, and we'll pay for it." So just right then and there, Justin, having that benefit of relief took all that anxiety and stress out of the way, where I wasn't worrying about any finances or cost. So I went to the emergency vet and I said, "Hey, so what's the process here?" And she's like, "Well, we got to go in, pretty quickly. We're going to have to, remove the spleen." And, but she said, once we open them up, we'll kind of see what's going on and we'll give you a call. So I remember, but she told me, she said, there's a good chance he might not make it through the surgery. So that alone was enough to cause me angst. So I remember going back there and seeing him, before that surgery and them taking him back, and his blood pressure was starting to tank a little bit. So that, time was of the essence to get him back. But just kind of, he had that look of panic in his eyes before I got back there, because they said he seemed pretty panicked. But it was that bonding moment again where I went back there and, we kind of looked at each other, and that I saw that calming moment kind of come over him. And I knew that, that's the time I needed to be there for him. And I always talked about the other times where, with these dogs and the bond we have and why it's so sacred is, life is hard, and we go through divorces, losses of parents or loved ones. And that one constant that's there for us as a handler is that dog, right? And sometimes it's just their presence there that takes that anxiety away and brings that calm back over you. So I felt at that moment I was giving that back to him, because he had that panic, and he got calm, and they were able to get him calm enough and take him back. And then they said they would give me a call within an hour and let me know what was going on. So that hour seemed like 3 hours, but they ended up calling me and said, "Hey, look, we opened him up. They said his spleen is covered in masses," and I have a picture that I'll share with you of the spleen. But and they said, from what we can feel, it seems like it's it seems like this is hemangiosarcoma, which is a pretty aggressive cancer. And from what we can feel, it feels like it's already spread to the liver. They're like, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean? What do I want to do? And they're like, well, do you want to continue with the surgery? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And she's like, well, there's no guarantee that he'll make it through the surgery, or if the cancer is spread to the liver, which we suspect it has, then that the long-term prognosis is not going to be good. But knowing Tambo and just the gut feeling that I had and the resiliency that he's shown over his career, for me, I wanted to give him every fighting chance possible. And so they went through with the surgery. They removed the spleen. He had a pretty rough recovery for about 3 or 4 days, but he got through it. And then they did the biopsy, and then it was just a matter of waiting for the biopsy to come back from there. So
wow. But so I started reading something else. Did he You know, and so now he's going into, or now is he currently going through chemo?
Yeah. So they came back. It was about it took about 5 days to come back, and they confirmed that it was hemangiosarcoma. And so I asked them. I said, "Well, did you biopsy the liver as well?" Which they didn't. And so the next step was to get a oncology appointment. So I got an oncology appointment at Blue Pearl in Malvern, PA, which is about an hour from my house. And I remember having the consult with the oncologist, and she said, "Look, we're going to take him back for an ultrasound, but this is a pretty aggressive cancer. If that cancer has spread to the liver, which they suspected it did, chemo's probably not going to do much for him. If it hasn't, then he's going to be
We froze. I'm gonna throw a commercial in. Whoop! There we go. Thought I lost you for. I did. I might have lost you for a second. There you go. You're back. I was gonna throw a commercial in over top of it if it was like an internet lag.
Yeah.
But so yeah. So the chemo. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did the ultrasound, and by the grace of God, Justin, the what they suspected of the cancer spreading to the liver had not yet. It was.
Wow.
It was still isolated to the spleen, and everything at the emergency bed had told me. And so we were able to start chemo, and we started it that day. And now we've gone through 3 sessions so far, and he's been fighting. He's been doing
this is
good.
Only recently. You said this was July. Right? So it's only been like a month and a half, 2 months almost. Like not even 2 months probably. So I mean, you guys are this is hitting it hard. Like recent. This isn't like an old story. This is a current event that you guys are working on. So so you're continuing the ambassador role. I've got a question where I was kind of like reading my own questions and thinking about it when I was getting this question together. We like Counterculture, our media company that we have, did an event last week in Miami, and there's an officer from Wisconsin that flew down. His name's Jack. He has leukemia and he's going through it, and he's a young officer, 23 years old, and he's fighting leukemia, and he's having, obviously agency wise it's difficult and how you fund those sort of things, but he's fighting it, and he's taken on one of our friends, Jerry Worms, the original Broward Sheriff's Office guy that was on Cops. And there's like a shirt that's been made, like a baseball card of him, and like he uses Jerry's sort of aura as his will to fight. And I know that there's a large presence of, because I've gone to cancer centers in my Star Wars gear, and I've visited cancer centers and with my group and taken pictures and talked to people that are freaking sitting in the chairs doing chemo, and it's a terribly sad and stressful time to see, and we're just trying to help people out. Is there an aptitude for Tambo to be that kind of I know he's not a therapy dog. I don't want to call him a therapy dog, but have you ever thought about that kind of thing? Because I mean, it would almost be, I feel like it would be interesting if I was going through it to have a dog come through to be personal, because people use those in hospitals all the time, and to say, hey, this dog's going through the same thing, or hopefully in the future went through the same thing as you are now. Is that?
Yeah. And that's what it's kind of been morphing into. He still does the ambassador stuff for, Project Canine Hero, but I decided to kind of share his story a little bit on Instagram, and the amount of people that have been reaching out to me saying, hey, I'm currently going through chemotherapy, and Tambo's an inspiration to me, and posting your stories about him and his resilience and will to live and fight. And I'm a firm believer, Justin, that no matter what you're going through, doctors can give you a expiration date, but the mind and spirit is what keeps people going, and that's why it's so important for me to keep Tambo vibrant. Now, I would never take him anywhere when he wasn't feeling well. With the chemo, we go through like day 2 through 4, we go through the nausea stage, and then his appetite comes back. but he's been doing great. We just got honored by the Baltimore Orioles this past week in the bottom of the third inning at Bark at the Park night, and bringing him up there and introducing him to everybody and talking about the fight that he's going through, and and he loved it. He loved being out. He loved still going out in the car and going to these events, and I think it keeps his mind sharp and his body healthy, and I'm gonna continue to do it with him as long as I can, and the outpour of kind words and gestures that people have done for him so far has been pretty amazing.
That's awesome. And I mean, so along with my story with our friend Jack, I'm gonna send you guys both each other's contact and Instagram accounts, because his family's really just starting a very similar one, like an account for him, that kind of shows his journey, and he's got some videos of him wearing VR glasses in the hotel, or not the hotel, in the hospital room, practicing his movements and building clearing and stuff with VR glasses in this facsimile firearm and everything that and so it's an interesting thing to see. And he got up and spoke at our live event that we had. So sharing just the same sort of stories, I think you guys could almost go hand in hand with that sort of scenario. And he could probably get a little bit of advice from you with the stuff that you're going through with Tambo and supporting him. Pretty freaking cool. Like, and this is all so like recent, so it's like hard for me to even ask, like, how are his appointments afterwards, ever since, like, are they saying that the chemo's doing its job?
Yeah. So this past one we just had, so he's going every 2 weeks, so we have our next one next week, but the one we did last week was that caused some anxiety for me, because they were doing the ultrasound before the chemo, just to make sure that there were no changes to the liver. And I remember
you're kind of pulling the curtain back. It's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And the oncologist came in and said, this is amazing. The liver is completely clear. There's no signs of cancer anywhere in the body. So this is the best news possible. So, and I remember getting, going back to that phone call when the emergency vet called me, says, "Hey, we got him opened up. There's all these masses on the spleen. What do you want to do?" And what I thought about at the time, two things. One, kind of the way that came across, it's almost like, hey, this is already a lost cause, or somebody that had to make a decision based on finances. And for me, going back to that financial thing, Justin, I don't think any handler should ever have to make a decision on their dog's well-being based on finances. And that's, also one of the big reasons of getting out here and showing what these dogs are sometimes go through, and the need to have the care for them, in retirement.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to drop this last ad, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about the silent heroes, forgotten heroes type thing, and kind of just what you were sort of breaking into. We'll cut you off there, and then we can wrap it up in that and sort of talk about what we can do as the community or in the community. So I'll be right back.
Yeah.
What's in the cup, guys? What's in my cup? Blackout Coffee Company. We joined up with them. I've been drinking it and I enjoy it, and I think you may enjoy it as well. So you can go over to our website and click the link, or you can just go to their website, blackoutcoffee.com, and use our coupon code to get 10% off. The code is DSP10. So go over, check it out. Yeah, so I'm gonna work on a couple things while we talk, or you go into it, but so yeah, like silent heroes, forgotten heroes. So like you were saying that, and we talked about even earlier in this, is that a lot of times these agencies will retire the dogs. They've still got a few years of life. They may not be serviceable in the industry just because of age, because of injuries. So it's important not to work them to the bone, not to run the tires off of these animals, because they're a living thing, and we grow to love them. So they come into retirement. So, like, are they forgotten? Do they become forgotten? Like, how's that?
Yeah, I mean, and I say forgotten heroes it's because they give their all, and then there's nothing set up for them in retirement, and that's when, you know, these dogs live to work, and not all dogs are cut out for this, and they give their all when they're working, and the bond and the loyalty that they give to the handlers and their families is second to none. So they kind of retire, and you know, you may have a nice retirement ceremony at work, and you know, you get the certificate of retirement, and again, the agencies do everything, you know, possible that they can for the dog, so it's not their fault. But after this happens, that's when behind the scenes that people don't see, that the dog's body starts to break down, and they really need that care. And you know, depending on, you know, what it all comes down a lot of times, what's your financial situation? Can you put a dog through a surgery? Can you afford to pay for chemotherapy for this dog? So a lot of times, unfortunately, handlers have to make a decision based on finances, and you know, that's a tough thing. And I think it, you know, I relate it to their veterans, their first responders, their officers, and you know, I feel like they should get the same benefits that we do, and we're hoping to be able to change that in the future.
Yeah, and that's through lobbying, through trying to get legislation. You know, you can start as early as low as the cities, the counties, then the state, and then of course, if you can get it to work and show proof of concept, even get it up into the, you know, nationwide, where, you know, there's a lot more going on nationally, but you know, you try to get it going on. But when you're a federal agency, you're, you know, some county, some city, even some state doesn't want to own you, doesn't want to, you know, everybody's looking at funding. So, you know, so I was putting in, I wanted to make sure that I dropped that in for anybody watching it. You know, you've got at Canine Tambo, or at Canine_Tambo, and then also Project Canine Hero. Those are on Instagram, and you can get through Instagram, you can get those links for that kind of stuff. But like, what else? What can somebody, like, if somebody's watching it and they're passionate about this kind of thing, or they do general fundraisers to raise money for organizations, what can the community do on behalf of this?
So is reach out to their local congressman and talk about the need for this care. And one of the things Jason's working on specifically through Project Canine Hero is the Canine Hero Act, and you know, he'll be putting more out on that in the near future, where that lobbying is going to continue. But he has a lot of information on his website at projectcaninehero.org, if you want to go to their website. And you know, also just continue to sharing the stories of these dogs like Tambo, like these other dogs that are going through cancer or some other significant illnesses, and the need to have that care. I know I wanted to also give a shout out to Houndbound Brewing. It's a local brewery, ironically, in Houston, that had reached out to me, and we became friends. And they're currently doing a fundraiser up until October, with any of the shirts that they're selling or merchandise, with 10% of the proceeds going to Tambo's care. So once those proceeds come in, I'm going to be giving them right back to Project Canine Hero, toward Tambo's care and a lot of the other four-legged heroes. But one of the cool things that they just did is they just launched Tambo's own shirt line.
I mean, I'm looking at it. It's on your Instagram. Yeah, that's on your Instagram, and they're really cool. They're nice.
Yeah. So they're Canine Tambo Strong shirts. Kevin and I over at Houndbound came up with the color schemes. You know, I'm a basic guy, so I like the OD green and the black and the navy blue. But so we tried to come up with some good color designs, and so they're pretty cool shirts. But any of those purchases will go toward Tambo's Care and Project Canine Heroes. So if you get
Oh,
a
good.
chance, check them out.
Yeah, I'm gonna order one, and I like the fact I complain that a lot of our guys all just make black and white T-shirts and everything's a black shirt, and I get sick of not sick of it. Black is lovely and it's slimming,
Yeah.
but I do enjoy an OD green shirt, and I can't do light colors. I can't do white. I prefer at least the darker colors.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like the OD green versions. So I'm down with it, man. Yeah, I'm gonna go order one over from them. So that's what. Yeah, I was curious because I had seen them on your Instagram, and I was like, how'd you get hooked up with these guys? They're in freaking Houston.
In Houston. Yeah, and it's funny because the Houston Texans had reached out to me as well, and they sent me a signed Derek Stingley football to auction off toward Tambo's Care. So ironically, talking to those guys in Houston, I sent the football out to them so they could auction it off to some of their
because obviously if you're in the
fans,
we were talking about the Ravens and stuff like that, you're not really going to find many Texans fans in the mid coast area there, DC, Boston metro area. You're not going to get many people that are interested in a Houston Texans player, but a super cool gesture and way to help somebody out with just something as easy as a signature on a football. So so.
And if I could give one more shout out to
shout
Tito,
it all out, dude. That's why you're here, man.
To Tito with Tito's Vodka. It's a funny story. I went to an FBI LEDA conference in San Antonio a few years back, and a coworker of mine, we were sitting at a table, and these two gentlemen came up and said, "Hey, can we sit here?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And we just got talking to him, but people were coming up getting pictures with this guy, and I had no idea who he was. Well, it turns out it was Tito. And
no way.
Long story short, we ended up hanging out all night, exchanged numbers. So when Tambo got sick, I sent Tito the link to one of the news stories I did, and I'd say within an hour, one of his team members from his philanthropy team called me, and I've been in contact with her ever since, and they've made two generous donations to Project Canine Heroes. So they're big dog lovers. I remember sharing the stories with Tito, and then I texted him and thanked him. And I know a lot of people are like, how the hell do you have Tito's number in your cell phone? So
that's excellent.
It's kind of a funny story. Yeah.
That's so cool. Aren't they in Austin area?
Yeah. He's got a ranch in Austin, Texas, from what he was telling me. Yeah.
I'm going to Austin on a bachelor party and in December, and so we were talking about because a couple of us are like big bourbon guys, so we go to Kentucky and we do bourbon tours in Kentucky and everything. So one of the guys was like, "Dude, we should try to go to Tito's or somebody or the other one." There's another one that's definitely Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's on the label, but these vodka companies, and just go do a tour of a vodka distillery or whatever. So yeah, that'd be cool too. I mean, Tito's big time. That's cool.
Yeah, so he's been a big supporter of Tambo and the working dogs, and again, big dog lovers. So any vodka I drink is Tito's now. So.
Oh yeah. Very cool, man. All right, well, I'm gonna get a shirt. Anybody else you need to shout out, or any other stories you have? Oh, and I do have one question before, but if you got any other stories or anything you want to throw out, or I'll go with my question.
Just some of the local media outlets in Pennsylvania and WMAR in Baltimore. They did a if you want to get more of a story at Tambo's home life, you can go to WMAR in Baltimore. It's got they got the video link up from the news story. They came to the house and shot Tambo at the house just to see what his home life was like. And I talked about his story a little bit more. So just a big thank you to them for letting me get Tambo's story out. And then also I just did an article for Canine Magazine, so I was able to get Tambo's story out on there. So just being able to let me use this platform a little bit to get the story out for Tambo, and the end goal is to not only represent Tambo, but all these working dogs in retirement and the need for care for them.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, exactly. All right, so my question, and this is going to be something that I'm still workshopping it, the way I ask it, but what's something that from the days of the police academy all the way back through your career, what's something that's like a mainstay with you, either something that you do that you've done every day that you go to work, like something that's work related in this law enforcement field? Like what's something that you find yourself that you either picked up as a habit or it's like a tick or something? What do you got for me?
So I'll share a quick story with you. When I first had my first dog, most canine handlers know this. They have to go through a yearly certification standard with their dog to pass to stay proficient. And I remember being a young guy in my 20s. I was going through a bad breakup at the time, and I went into these certifications, and I failed it miserably. And then again, I was talking about when your mind's not right and you're trying to work a dog, it goes down the end of the leads. So the dog knew, things were effed up, and I was totally shit the bed searching. So long story short, I got through that certification, but I remember the canine commander at the time, who ended up becoming a mentor to me. He said, look, in this profession and in the canine field, you got to have that imaginary trash can when you come to work, because life is going to hit you hard, whether I was talking about a divorce, your child is sick, loss of a loved one. You got to really clear your mind when you come to work, and especially in law enforcement, and put all that shit out when you come to work, and focus on the job, because that's when bad things can happen, or something simple as failing a certification, or losing your life, and not being on point. So I try to have that mentality every day when I go to work, with whatever shit I'm dealing with, is just throw it to the side. And it was a simple thing that he said to me, but it just stuck with me over these 20 years, is clearing my mind when I go to work. And now I got a lot of people under me that I manage and lead. I've gotten big into leadership, and as a leader, when you go to work, and this, Justin, is you're setting the tone for other people's day. So if you come in and you're in a bad mood, and you don't realize it, and you don't say good morning to something, they're gonna be like, hey, he just walked by me and say good morning. He may not like me, or he thinks this way of me. So you got to come in the right mind and know that you're kind of setting the tone as that leader, and everybody's looking at you to kind of set that example. So, and the big part of that is having that clear mindset when you come in, man. And that's where I think, like, on a whole nother topic, police wellness, it really needs to come to the forefront more for our profession.
Yeah, no, you're right. When you were saying that, I was thinking, man, those grumpy briefings set the tone for the rest of the day, and it feels like it almost resonates out into the city. And it just turns out that it's like the most dumb drama filled calls come in, and it's like, dude, what a day. Whereas if we're goofing, busting balls, laughing, talking about other stories, like, the city's almost quiet for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, this week I wrote one report in 4 days of 11.5-hour shifts. Like, I earned my money. Relax, everybody who wants to get pissed off and say I wasn't earning my money, but I earned my money. I agree with you. It's the way that leadership puts out or pushes out their demeanor can resonate. Just like that, just like you hooked in with basically your lead is an electrical lead. So that electrical current coming off of your hand is going into that dog, and they're feeling it, and they know exactly what's going on with you, and they're going to act accordingly. So it's a great point. So good. These questions that question works out now. So I'm liking that I've added that question to the repertoire. So
I like it.
I'm working it out for a shirt line that I'm doing, because for me in the academy, we were always taught, I'm right side dominant with my gun, even though I'm a lefty, but my gun's on my right side. And so I was always taught, don't carry crap in your right hand. Don't carry your books going from class to class in the police academy or wherever you're going. Don't carry anything in the right hand. Everything was loaded up in the left hand. So that way you're always able to draw, you're ready to go. So I was like, that's something that I've always remembered. So I'm going to ask that in the questions, because we've all got something. And then I'm making a t-shirt line out of it for the donut shop, like, don't eat your donuts with your shooting hand. And then don't drink your coffee with your shooting hand, hold it in your other hand. Cause and it just goes back to us. You always got to be ready. You never know what's going on. You could be scarfing on a donut and somebody pulls up and you gotta draw. You don't want to have frosting all over your gun. So same sort of thing. And then I'll probably do one for whiskey as well. So, all right, cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. This is super interesting. If you end up coming down to a Marlins game, give me a heads up, and I'll try to see if I can get down there. It's a fun time to always go down there. And then there's always vet ticks, or first ticks is always good for getting a Marlins ticket. You can get like a 4-pack for like $14. It's like ridiculous. They're basically giving them away. So it's a good way to get some games in and stuff like that. So yeah, let me know if you get down here or whatever, and then we'll hook up, say what's up.
And remember, Lamar and Derrick Henry for your fantasy draft.
Right. Yeah, no, I got to go. I'm heading over in an hour to get that. So you always got to find a tandem. I'm big on tandems, on grabbing it's hard to grab a number one wide receiver with the quarterback. So I usually grab that slot receiver with the quarterback, and sometimes those work out because those slot receivers become the second option or the third option, or grabbing the tight end with the wide receiver or with the quarterback. Yeah. That way you get double points, man. Double down.
Those double points. They're going to do it for you. Yeah.
You just hope that they don't get fucking blown out, on the other way, or they're up against another defense. So stick around. I'll run the end of the recording, and then stick around. We just got to make sure everything uploads appropriately, and then we'll get about our days. So thanks, everybody. We'll catch you.
Calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.